So, let us learn few more things regarding exception handling in Java programming. We have discussed about the exception handling features, mainly the try, catch, finally, throw and throws. Now, in this module we will discuss about the built-in the different packages, and before that we should discuss few more things there. So, the try catch, so far try catch concept as we have learned about, there is a scope that the nested try catch can be implemented. Now, here is an example to include this concept called the nested try catch. It is a nested means the try catch block within another try, this is the concept. So, and there is no limit of nesting, try catch block within try, within that try catch block another try catch like this. So, and then obviously that what is the reason, what is the purpose, why we should do that, there obviously it is okay, the questions. Now, the basic concept so far the nested try catch block can be understood here from this. So, suppose this is the method which is under the investigation of handling exception, and here if you see there is one what is called the inner try catch, outer try catch block. Within this try catch we can define another try catch, is called the inner. Within this also another try catch block can be defined like this. So, if we define a try catch block within another try catch block, then such a try catch block construct is called nested try catch block. Now, let us see one example where it can be applicable. This is again simple example that we can think about. Okay, this is a very simple program, it has only main method. So, we want to handle the exception in this method only. So, here is basically a args.length, or the args.length means whatever the input that user passed according to the number of input, this value a will be decided. So, if user do not pass any input, a will be 0, and accordingly the value of a will be there. Now, here if user do not pass any input, then a is 0, and as we see there is an exception called divide by 0 or arithmetic exception. Now, again let us see here, suppose user enter only one input. So, in that case a equals to 1. Now, in that case also it will give an error. So, it is also the divide by 0 error. Now, another situation, so it is not the 0 input, it is not the single input, say suppose user enter 2 input. Then in that case if you see if a equals to 2, then there is again possibility of error, because here we declared an array of integer c with only one element c in it, that means size of the array at present is 1, but we want to store a value at the second, that means this is array index out of bound error is there. Now, so here basically two type of errors. In the first two cases as we see here and here, this is arithmetic exception error, and in the second case is there is called the array index out of bound exception occur. So, two type of error. Now, if two type of errors, then we can think for only two catch block. Now, here the idea is that we can write one try block here. So, this catch block, this try catch block will handle these are the arithmetic exception error. Then there is another error that may occur within this. So, inside this another try catch block we can put, so that it can handle this exception. So, this is the concept, this is the concept of nesting. So, this is a simple example. So, here is the solution for the nesting case is there. As you see, this program will not run for all these input, because it will give an error whatever it is there. It will run for this one no error, but for this one it will error. Now, so the remedy here we have checked it here. So, let us see this program, as we have see this is the try and corresponding to this. So, this is there is a two try catch block, as we see in this program. This is the one try and this is the corresponding catch. So, try catch, and this is the inner try catch, and outside this is the another try and this is the another catch. So, it is called the nested try catch. Now, if we see this inner try catch will handle the exception, this is the array index out of bound, whereas this try will handle the case this one, and then finally this will work. So, this is the idea about the nested try catch block. Okay. So, Java is basically a very versatile programming language in the sense that whatever the possible exception and errors may occur in a program, it can handle. So, regarding these things, the Java developer or JDK package includes a very nice one package, the Java.lang package. This package has been planned to show that it can take care many errors and exception. So, this is the class hierarchy that this Java.lang package has regarding that exception handling. So, here basically there is a class called object is defined in this Java.lang .Throwable class. It is called the class Throwable. Under this Throwable, these are the basically hierarchy of the different subclasses of the class Throwable. So, object is the class superclass, under the superclass Throwable is basically another interface, and this Throwable has many. So, this basically Throwable class has the two subclasses errors and exception. Now, the simple exception is there and then runtime exception is there. Now, so these are the different what is called the class hierarchy that is there in the Java.lang Throwable classes are there. Now, for each classes there are different what is called the exceptions that may occur under these classes, so that they can handle it. So, here is basically let us first discuss about the runtime exception subclasses, which basically causes many exception. So, exceptions are discussed here as we see here that 5 around. Okay, so, around 12 18th 6 12. Okay. So, 12 different type of exception that may occur during runtime exception subclasses, which it can causes. For example, we have already discussed about array arithmetic exception, array index out of bound exception, and then there is a many more array this illegal argument exception, security exception, incompatible class change error, index out of bound exception, negative array size exception, null pointer exception, number format exception, strings index out of bound exception. Few exceptions already we have discussed in our discussion, okay, and few more exceptions that we will learn about while we have a demonstration on this concept. So, that it will clear our idea. Now, so these are the different type of exceptions that the Java developer automatically, these are built in exception types, which is already there in the runtime exception category of the Throwable class. Now, so these are the frequently occur exception related to the different situations, it is there. Now, other also there is another class exception subclass also there. It is basically in this exception subclass there are few more exception that it may handle, is a class not found exception, and then data format exception, illegal access exception, instantiation exception, interrupted exception, no such method exception, and runtime exception. So, these are the different type of exceptions. It is usually if you are an advanced Java programmer, then you may face this kind of exception when you are developing application. So, in that case all they come into the picture, but it is very difficult to illustrate all these exceptions one by one, because it is too more, I mean it is also not possible in this shortage time. Anyway, so these are the different exceptions. So far runtime exception and then exception subclasses is concerned, and there is one is called the error subclass. So, in the error subclass also you can see these are the different exception that it may occur. Okay, so, this is the error classes and this is the exception subclasses. Okay, so, these are the few more errors that is there in the exception classes, as we have mentioned here, that class circulatory error, class format error, error, simple error, and then linkage error, instantiation error, no class defined found error, no such method error, no such field error, out of memory error, stack overflow error, throwable unknown for error, unintensified link error, then verify error and virtual machine error. So, there are many errors that may occur in a program which is discussed here. Now, all these subclasses that we have discussed is associated with many methods. Here we have listed few methods and with their description. As you see here, the get message, probably we have learned about the get message is basically it will tell about a particular error. So, it basically returns a message about a particular exception that usually it encounter. So, it is basically this message is initialized through a constructor which is defined in throwable class. This is the main class, so super class. Now, there is again get clause. It basically return an object of class throwable to the caller program. If a method in which this exception occur, it will basically throw an exception to the caller. So, that is why get clause. It basically tells about the reason for the exception that it have. So, it has very useful indication to both the programmer as well as for the user also. Then toString, here it basically return the name of the class where this error occurs. If possibly concatenate if this class is under another class or is a nested class or derived class, whatever it is there, it will basically concatenate all the classes, then give a particular location. So, this is particularly very much useful for debugging the program and testing the program. Then print stack trace, it is just like a idea about tracing that. That means, if an error occurs in a particular method, if this method is declared in which class, if this class is a derived class or not, or implements an interface like this. So, it will basically give a full trace of the location where this particular exception occurs, or if there is a chain of exception, one exception can propel other exception, then other exception. Also using this print stack trace, we will be able to trace the region or the location of the exception. Then stack trace element, it is basically an advanced version of this one. It basically, if multiple errors occurs, then it basically put on into the stack. Whenever you are writing same recursive program, suppose, and there may be multiple exception occurs at different points, and then it will basically pushing all the exception into a stack, and that is basically the idea about. And then finally, it will use this one. So, this get stack trace is basically catch all the exception that it may happen in a method, and it will push on stacking, actually it is stacking into a stack. And then fill in stack trace also, it basically this method returns a returns an exception object of this throwable class, and whenever there is an exception occurs, and then obviously in the, so it basically check that whether stack is able to handle this kind of exception or not. So, this is a basic precautionary statement like. So, these are the different methods which are there in the exception class. Now, there is a possibility, so that depending on the needs of user can define their own exception. So, this concept is basically to make the program more versatile, more flexible, more robust and reliable. So, this is possible by means of user defined exception. In other words, user can define their own exception. So, here is an idea, let us see how user can define their own exception. Now, first of all, you have to create a class. That class should be a derived class of the super class throwable. So, it is basically all exception must be a child of throwable class. We have already discussed about this throwable class is defined in Java.lang package. Now, so this is the syntax by which we can create an exception, which basically type of the runtime exception that can handle it. So, here as we see class my exception, it is basically user defined class, and extend exception. Exception is basically is a subclass of throwable. We have already learned about. Sometimes the runtime exception also we can declare. So, there are different type. Okay. So, this is the way by which user can define their class, and here the code of the exception class. Now, let us have an example, so that we can understand how user can define its own exception. Now, this is a very simple program, and here we can see this is the user defined one class. This is the user defined one class. We define name of the class that we have defined is insufficient fund exception, which basically is a derived class of exception. And these are the few codes of this right. So, here private double amount is a one field, and then this is basically the constructor of this class. This will take the amount, and this dot amount it basically initialize, and then there is another method public double get amount and return amount. So, the class is very simple, without any exception. This class can be considered only simple class A, and then all these codes can also be there, but we have to just make it at an exception class, this one of our own. Now, let us see how we can use it. This is one application that we are going to discuss in the context of banking transaction, and then we can understand about it. Let us have the discussion, so that we can discuss about it. Now, so this exception that we have discussed here, we want to use it in our application class. Now, so application class is like this. So, there is a user defined class checking account. So, it will take the balance, then number, and then it is the constructor here, and this is another method deposit amount, and the balance will be increased. So, this is the concept, it is there. So, account will be checked, and then the amount that will be deposited into the account, and there is another method which is in this class is also there, withdraw method, deposit method, withdraw method, and here in this case we have mentioned one exception throws insufficient fund exception. So, if we can find that if amount less than equals to balance, then balance will be negative or balance will be adjusted, and then if it is not, then it will throw an exception. So, this exception is basically it is there. So, suppose one user wants to withdraw some amount which is not permissible as per the balance is concerned. In that case, it will throw this exception insufficient fund exception. So, this is the idea about. Then once this class is declared, we can define the main class here. Here you can see this is an extension of this one, just withdraw has this one, else, and this class has few more codes of course. So, here is a few codes it is there, and then these are the simple get balance and then get number. These are the complete description of the class that has it is there, checking account class. Now, once this class is defined, then we will be able to define our main class. So, the main class it looks like this. The name of the main class is bank demo, and it has the main method, and we can see we have created an object of checking account, and then say let there may be 100 plus the account holder is there. So, this is the size of the total customer base actually, and then system.out println depositing $500, this is the one method it is there, and then C deposit 500. So, it is basically that this for this object we want to call the method deposit. So, now after this thing try catch is there, C dot withdraw and then C dot withdraw. So, this is a 100 withdraw one instance, 600 withdraw another instance. Now, in case suppose there is any exception occur, then this is the catch block which will take care. So, this is our own exception, user defined exception, as you can note it here. Now, so there are few instances that it may occur. If you run this program, the entire class declaration that we have discussed and then run it, and then there are few instances of the input that we can see depositing $500, withdrawing $100. These are the things that we will print. Sorry, but you are short of 200, insufficient fund exception at this one. It basically shows the different situation when this program is executed. So, this way the user can define their own exception and then can develop the program according to their requirement. Okay, so, this is about the different cases of the exception that it may occur here, and we are almost at the final round of the exception handling discussion. Before going to these things, I just want to mention few simple example. Let us see whether you can follow it or not. Here is the one program, and just check this program and tell where is the possible scope of exception that it may result. As we see here, so this is a simple class, only one class which has the main method. This is the main method. Now, let us scan one by one this statement. Now, I am telling one very simple rule of thumb is that if we suspect any exception that it may result, then that statement, that code can be put under try catch. So, in that case, the very simple way that you can handle the exception is that so many try catch corresponding to this one, but this is obviously makes the program too bulky with so many try catch, but ultimately it is a robust of course. But there are many way that is the rather efficient way that with minimum number of try catch how we can handle everything. So, usually the advanced programmer think for this one that with minimum number of try catch, whether this is try catch, nested, throws with their own exception, whatever it is there. Anyway, so for a beginners the best practice should be that if you see that there is an error, so put a try catch and accordingly handle it. You can use the finally if you want. If you do not want, then finally is a default one. So, it is not necessary to use. Now, so here again here if you see this is the one statement. Do you think that there is a possibility of an exception occurs here? Yes, because if the scanner class is not instantiated and then create a scanner object, then it may leads to an exception. So, there is a possibility that an exception occurs. So, this is the one possibility that exception occur. Now, next is here this statement and this statement as well as. So, next int is basically it check that in the line of input whether the next input is there. If some regions are there, whenever this input is not there or not able to read integer rather some string and everything, then this statement also throws exception, and these are the very simple. So, there is no exception. Now, so these are the point here, here and here. Now, how many try catch block that you can think for? Okay, fine. So, one solution is that all these things can be put only try and then here is the catch, or as it is a try, this is the one kind of exception and this is only one kind of exception. So, nested try also can be planned, so that with minimum number of try catch code we can handle the exception here in this case. So, it is the practice. So, you can think about how you can put it. It is basically if you put many try catch block, absolutely no error, no problem, because if the exception occur then only it will be there. But the problem is that if you do not mention try catch block properly, so that even in the case of exception occurs you are not able to catch it, then it is a problem. So, that is the things are there. And one more thing, so if you do not put try catch block explicitly, but there is a possibility of exception occurs. So, during the compilation the compiler can note it and then compiler can report it. Until you put try catch in your block, compiler will not compile it successfully. So, this is the one great advantage for the programmer, that okay, if you suppose miss to add try catch construct in your program, the compiler will help you to do that. So, there are many ways it is possible. So, this is the one example that we have discussed about in a scanner, and this is a simple one example. Now, let us consider another example. It basically is similar to the scanner. A scanner means it is basically read the input from the keyboard and then store into an array. Here is an example as we see, and the array list is a one structure, data structure defined in Java.util package. Now, let us see here. So, this is the simple again code, the main method, and obviously there is no point of exception, but here is the one point of exception, that if the array list is not, this L is not built in properly or not created successfully. If it is not created successfully, then here is an error occurs, here is an error occurs, and then here is an error occurs. And also here another error occurs, that L dot size. If you have created an array list, but the size of the array list is very small, rather is a 0, then also it can create errors. Now, we have pointed out few things are there. Again another also, there is also possibility that one error is occur here. Now, again if I ask you that okay, how you can insert the try catch block in this program, so that this program will be robust, or if you can think about of your own throw and then accordingly user defined exception you can. So, if you want to have your own user defined one, you should define a exception classes, which is the child class derived class of throwable or exception, and then according to that you can write the try, here the try, here the catch, or here again try, another catch. So, that all the exception it can be handled in this program. So, there are many ways actually that you can do. So, this is the one idea about. Now, let us have another example. So, here is another example. This example we have discussed while we are considering input and output to the system. This example as we see here, okay, we have okay fine. This is again simple method, main method it is there. In this main method, these are the simple declaration of the two objects. So, this is also another declaration. So, these are declaration, there is no point of any exception occurs here, just a matter of discussion declaration only. Now, here if we see here again this one, this basically is the one very critical code here, because we have to create an object of data input stream, and sometimes this may have problem. Sometimes I told you, not always, and exception is like that. Okay, it can happen in some special situation like this. Now, in that case, so this statement should be covered under try catch block. Now, if there is a problem and subsequently there also the possibility that there is a problem here, either it is a read line problem from the object in, there is also read line from the object in, there is also there, and like this. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 points where we can see the exception occurs here, and also here. So, this is basically, this is the one value changing conversation, string to float value, string to integer to parse in, there is also possible scope of errors there. Now, as we see these are the possible, because you have entered some value which is not possible to convert into integer, say 20.55, then in that case it basically not able to parse into integer. So, that error will be there. So, as we see, so these are the 4 cases, and these also other 3 cases that error may occur. Now, once you identify this is the possible location that the exception can be thrown or exception can occur, then accordingly we have to take care about the try catch. There are again many ways are there. First of all, we can use the throw statement. So, what you can do is that we can write here the throws and exception. Then whatever the causes are there, we can put try and then here catch. So, try and then catch, then exception occur E. So, this is the one way. So, throws means it will basically throws all the exception that it may happens, and then within this try cause they can be exception. Now, other than using the throws statement itself, simply try and then the catch also can be put here exception. If you can know that this is the exception due to this, this is the exception due to this, then accordingly several catch block you can put it for each exception. So, this is the case of single try with multiple catch, and also one try with all exception mean multiple exceptions by one catch also. In that case, similar to the throws also we can use it. So, there are many ways that you can do. Only if you know the mechanism, then all those ways that can be incorporated in your program, and thus you can make your program very robust. So, this is all about the exception handling concept in Java programming. Now, after knowing the exception mechanism, our next task is to learn about how the distributed programming can be done, because Java is very famous for distributed computing. So, in our next module we will learn about the distributed programming, more specifically the multi-threading concept, and then we will discuss the how Java language can help a programmer to develop their internet programs. So, these are the concepts, these are the questions will be answered in our next module ahead. Okay, thank you very much.